At LCCS, we turn to our students for guidance on multiple factors on terms of what happens every day, what their academic experience was like. What does it mean when you've mastered the curriculum in a grade, and how can we really create new learning opportunities? We looked at 3 students that we thought could be part of this, and then we started to create all sorts of opportunities for them to receive a lot of different supports in a lot of different ways. It was very interesting. All of the families that were part of this initiative really said this is ultimately going to be up to our child to decide what they want to do.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashaunta Harris and Jim Goenner, where we ask what school could be and learn from the people brave enough to build it. Powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
And I am super pumped that we have with us this season our co-host, Don Cooper. John, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, great to be here, Vashaunta.
Well, I'm excited today. This is actually one of the chapters from Ted Kolderie's book that I really, really liked. I read it like 3 different times on the plane. So I'm going to go into the first question that I really started grappling with myself. So Don, what problem is Kolderie actually trying to solve with the split screen strategy? And why does he argue that improvement and innovation cannot live on the same track?
Vashaunta, first, I'm so glad that you enjoyed this book because Ted's work in general, I'm a big Ted Kolderie fan. He's shaped the way that I think about education and school reform and more broadly government reform in general. And I think the split screen strategy is one of his most interesting and accessible books for people who are just starting to learn about Ted and learn his work. So I'd encourage all listeners to pick it up and read it. It's a real short book. You'll be able to knock it out in an afternoon, and you're going to want to go back and read it again and again and highlight it just like my copy is. And part of the split screen strategy is a basic argument that we need 2 things in public education. Public education is super important to the future of our nation and our communities and to every child's future as well. And we need 2 things in order to make it better. First, we need to improve the system as it currently exists. And that means what can we do within the system to get better results for kids? What can we do within the system to, increase efficiency, to allow for some improvements on things and do that at scale? And the reason that improvement is important is because most kids are, and for the foreseeable future, will continue to be educated within the traditional district system setting. So we have an obligation to work to make that better over time. But the second side of the screen is what I'd call the innovation side of the screen, okay? And that is, how do we create a new open space where we can try things that are outside of the traditional system, that we bring in new people, new resources who have new ideas, and allow them to do things, put together new schools, new programs, small at first, see what works. Things that are working, we can replicate and scale up and learn the lessons from those and bring them over to the traditional system. Things that aren't working, we can stop while they're still small before they affect a lot of kids. And through that, through the 2 sides of the screen, the improvement in the innovation side, we get what Ted would call a self-improving system. So public education gets better over time. The reason that innovation and improvement need to exist in different lanes is because they have different requirements of doing so. Because if you try to innovate within the traditional system, you're in a system. You've got the rigidity that goes along with it. You've got processes, you've got controls, you've got procedures, and innovation occurs outside of that. It occurs when people get out of the way, when they trust teachers, when they trust schools to try new things, when you put those new things within some general parameters and boundaries and pay attention to them. But fundamentally, it's about allowing for space for innovators to do different things. And that's just fundamentally different. So we need to work on both the innovation and the improvement, but the innovation only occurs when we allow space to do so.
Mm-hmm. And Jim, we've been talking about strategies and systems. And so how does the idea of running these 2 strategies in parallel challenge the instinct that many leaders have to scale what works as quickly as possible?
Vashaunta, I'm not convinced most people still understand what Ted meant by the split screen. And so Don gave a great explanation. I'm going to add to it, but I want to pause for a minute and just ask this question. If we ask the people furthest from students to design the work, why would we wonder why it doesn't work? And I want you to think about that, because where do we spend most of our time? We talk about policy and laws. We talk about rules and regulations. We talk about governance and authorizing. We talk about funding. We talk about accountability and performance and operations. That's screen one. So I want you to hear that. Policy, accountability, rules, regs, governance, that's screen one. Screen two, that's about classrooms, teachers, principals, students, families. They're different screens. And here's the real key insight. No learning happens in the top screen. It happens in the bottom screen. Those are the people closest to the action. That's Ted's point.
I love that. And when you think about the cyclical nature, right? So technically, the activity happening in screen two has to somehow inform screen one, right? Like at some point, there's supposed to be this bit of overlap. So Donna, we'll come back to you for this next question. Where do you see education systems today forcing innovation to conform to improvement rather than protecting the space for fundamentally different ideas?
Yeah, great question. And we see a lot of that today. And when we think of public education, uh, I kind of want to think about it. I'd encourage everyone to think about a few things in it. First, we have inputs, okay? We have inputs. Those are the things that go into the system, your money, your resources, your teachers, your kids. And then you have the system, you have the school itself. And the school then ends up with some sort of output, okay? You do things. You teach kids, you grant diplomas, you do stuff. And we hope that that output leads to a desired outcome. Okay. And the desired outcome that we want is we want kids to be well prepared for life. We want them to be able to be successful. We want them to be well educated. We want them to be great citizens. Okay. So that's really what we're going for, is those outcomes. But those outcomes get super hard to regulate and control on things. And when you rely on people, when you trust people in an innovation system to try to get those outcomes, sometimes you don't get them. Okay. That's just the nature of innovation. Sometimes you do things that work out really well. Sometimes you do things that don't meet your expectations and you choose to stop doing them. Well, for some policymakers and board members, accepting that is just kind of a hard thing. So what they end up doing is they start regulating your input, of how you're going to start using your input, what you're going to do, with the theory that regulating that is going to somehow affect your outcome on things. And that is kind of just a natural tendency that I think people have, is to try to take what they think is the best way of do it, regulate it, require everyone to do it. And that works against innovation in key ways. It might improve a system, but it works against innovation and creates the rigidity that we're trying to move away from here.
And that's a good lead into my next question for Jim. If we were to really make space for innovation, if we took this split screen strategy very seriously, what would we need to do in order to get out of the way of leaders who are working to innovate?
I think it's what we'd have to do, which is trust. We'd have to trust the people closest to the action. So let's talk about who that is. Students and teachers. They are the ones closest to the action. And so what would it look like to trust students? What would it look like to trust your educators, to allow them to try different things? And that is really critical. We've heard about it in our interview with High Tech High not long ago, but they've created a system of trust where people are flourishing. And that's true of innovation. Innovation flourishes where it's welcomed, where it's encouraged, where it's rewarded, where it's recognized. Those are the things that we need to do.
Now, friends, we have just talked about the idea that knowing students are different is not enough. If public education is going to truly maximize on student motivation, just like Kolderie argues, schools are pushed to design differently, that structurally, relationally, and intentionally. So we have to ask ourselves, what does this look like in practice? Well, we are very excited to take you on our journey today with our travels. We are headed to Jersey City to explore that question through the work of Learning Community Charter School. This is a school built around diversity, partnership, and a deep commitment to designing around each learner. We're going to hear from three beautiful voices who bring this story to life from three very different perspectives. One is Dr. Colin Hogan, the head of school of Learning Community Charter School. The second is Pavit Thakkar, an 8th grade student who has experienced personalized learning in a very real way. And Pavit's mom, Mirs Thakkar, joins us as a parent partner in that journey. So before we dive in, friends, we are going to give each of our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. So Dr. Hogan, I want to come to you first and allow you a chance to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have been working at Learning Community Charter School as the head of school. This is my 12th year. And I have to say, in all my years of working and all the different jobs I've had, it is the most fulfilling work. And I've actually milked cows, which I really like doing too, but this is so much better. And the reason why is because Learning Community is such a collaborative enterprise. We work so much together to realize each other's goals and aspirations, not only for students, but also for families and faculty as well. It's such a bold and important vision. And it really kind of, when I think about why I'm in education, I envisioned always working in a school like Learning Community and working for a place like Learning Community. So it's so exciting for me because it aligns with what I believe in terms of constructivist education, project-based learning, equity, cultural responsiveness. All those boxes are checked at Learning Community. And I get to work with incredible people like Pavit and his mom.
Oh, that's a beautiful segue because Pavit, we would love to come to you next. We want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our listeners as well.
My name is Pavit. I've been at LCCS for 9 years now. I've been here from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade. And my experience at Learning Community Charter School has been like no other. I've received an education and personalized learning that has really affected my growth and made me a better person. And I think that I would love to share that with all of you today.
Oh, well, we are so grateful and welcome you to the show. And you also have Mom here with us. So Mrs. Thakkar, we'd like to come over to you and allow you a chance to introduce yourself to listeners.
Yes, thank you. I'm Pavit's mom, Kruti Thakkar, and I'm very happy and glad to be on this show with Dr. Hogan and Pavit. I have been a charter parent since, like Pavit said, since pre-K4, and it's almost a decade now. And we are very happy as parents to have chosen a school like Learning Community Charter School. It has been an enriching experience and truly like no others.
Well, welcome each and every one of you to the show. All right, we're going to get started. Jim, I'll hand it over to you.
Vashaunta, I'm all fired up today because we often talk with educators and board members and authorizers and influence makers, but now we're talking the real deal, moms and students. So I'm not even going to say student, I'm going to say scholar, because we got a chance to listen to Pavit earlier, and I know he is one. So, hey, Dr. Hogan, first question to you. With a nod to Simon Sinek, we always like to start with why. So why Learning Community? Why you? Why 12 years? What was the problem you're trying to solve, and why does it matter?
So Learning Community began, it's one of the older charters in the charter world. We'll be celebrating our 30th anniversary in 2027. And the school was founded with a simple yet very ambitious vision, which was that bringing all the children of Jersey City together for an educational experience that was based around project-based learning, social emotional learning, and community service. Now, that seems like something that we can all agree on, but actually making that happen is very complicated, because when you're bringing kids together from across one of the most diverse cities in the United States, you are encountering lots of differences in terms of academic experience, just how people interact with school. There's different cultures. There's all sorts of there's even the challenges of getting from one part of the city to another. All these things come into play. And so the school really had to think about, how do we sort of embrace what makes us such a unique and diverse community, yet at the same time really unite around the concept that our vision is bold and big, that we are going to make sure that all of our students apply all of their learning to make a difference in their communities. So to do that, you really have to think about the design of your school. And I think what's really been special about Learning Community is that for the past 29 years, the school every year is always thinking about, how do we get better, and how do we improve, and how do we reinvent ourselves to do just more for our students, more for our families, and more for our faculty. So that really speaks to me, because I really believe as a school leader, I really lean into creativity, and I really lean into collaborative work. So I have such incredible partners, and I consider my partners not just the faculty here, my fellow administrators, but I consider people like Pavit and his mom partners as well. And so when we all collaborate together, and we'll talk a little bit about Pavit's story, but I think that we really have to think about these ventures as ones where we are kind of all united together and doing these things together. It really does take students, families, and faculty to really bridge the divide and really accomplish big things.
Mrs. Thakkar, obviously you've got to be proud of your son. And as a fellow parent, I've got an 8th grader at a charter school called Renaissance Academy. And so you are the first teacher, and you had the power of choice through this idea of chartering. Talk to us about what that experience has been, and what experience has been like to have Pavit excelling the way he is.
Oh, it has been a wonderful experience, for sure. Yes, as parents, we definitely have the choice to choose a school for our kid. However, for us, the choice was even wider, because we from my employment, we get to choose to put our child even in a private school for no cost. However, having seen my son come back home happy every single day, never made us think again of moving his school, putting him into a private school, or any other school for that matter. So we as parents, me and my husband, were extremely happy with the school Pavit was in, and how a community was getting formed within the Learning Community School. He was not only learning academically, but he was growing as a kind human being, a joyful little kid, which is exactly what we wanted. From his academic standpoint, yes, the school was able to give us an opportunity to accelerate him from grade 4 directly to grade 6, knowing that he's a gifted child. And that really touched us, because we as parents do recognize certain things in our kids. Like you said, we are the first teachers, and we know our child from day one. However, having the school recognize that having the school know that was really important, and it mattered because they were able to see also his capability, uh, his growth path, and encouraged to put him at a level where he would be completely engaged. So that has been again extremely good experience, and we would not have chosen otherwise. It was definitely not an easy decision, but like I said, a good one that we all took, and the school had a big part to play in that, in having us take that decision as well.
Well, I want the podcast nation to hear that. As the pace of change accelerates in education and it becomes a more diverse and dynamic educational marketplace, question is, can you compete? And here's the answer, yes. But you got to go to work on the mission and the team and the culture, add that value. Would it be too strong to say the school loves your son?
Oh, the school definitely loves my son. Um, Pavit loves his teachers, and the school looks forward to going every single day. The school loves him. We can see that in all our parent-teacher conferences, all the conversations we hear from his teachers, from every single conversation with Dr. Hogan, uh, him being at having the responsibility to run a school, yet taking the time to speak to us, shows that he values this relationship. This is a partnership, and we go to him for any critical advice, and he knows that, like choosing a good high school. Um, we went to him and asked, we went to his teachers and asked. So this is definitely a partnership, and it is so true to say that my child is being loved, and extremely, it's like a family. He goes into another family when he goes to school.
I'd love for each of you to talk about what personalized learning looks like here. Dr. Hogan, maybe you can start with how you and the team approached the acceleration decision for Pavit. What did that choice, what did that process really reveal about your team and the school's philosophy?
We call that program our Learning Lab. The students that are part of that, they always want to do projects that are very school-based and sort of giving back to the school and the community. And I think that's, although they are personal passion projects, they are always related to, and we didn't tell, when we developed this program, we really wanted to serve the students, but they inherently wanted to turn around and serve kids. And so when we looked at someone like Pavit, it was, and we had a few other students that were also, we really started to think about what does it mean when you've mastered the curriculum in a grade, and how can we really create new learning opportunities? And I also want to say simultaneously, we were also building supports for students that really needed to match some of the accelerated curriculum that we already had in place at the school, because we wanted everybody really to get what they needed. So we started to think about what does that mean if we were just to have Pavit move from move from fourth grade to sixth grade. What does that look like? And how do you make that a successful experience? And we really started to think about that community piece that's in our name. How do we build a structure that's supportive? So the first thing we think about is cohorts of students, because we didn't really want one student to do this on their own. Ideally, we wanted to create, and even if that were the case, how do you create a high level of support? So fortunately, we looked at 3 students that we thought could be part of this. And then we started to create all sorts of opportunities for them to receive a lot of different supports in a lot of different ways. One of the things is that we wanted them to have a grade level mentor. Who actually wound up being a really important collaborator and now friend, I believe, for Pavit. And so we matched the students with a grade level collaborator, and then they actually worked in addition to, and we also gave them we also really capitalized on student voice. We really believe a lot in student voice At LCCS, we turn to our students for guidance on multiple factors on terms of what happens every day, what their academic experience was like. And in this matter, it was very interesting. All of the families that were part of this initiative really said this is ultimately going to be up to our child to decide what they want to do. And we didn't have a unified decision. Two of the students decided to remain, and one student said they really wanted to remain in the grade that they were in, which was great because that was optimal in terms of the students really drove this. But we also created space for the students to meet with our school counselor, to talk a little bit about how their experiences were going, to know more, to get feedback on where we needed to, improve support for them. So that was kind of our approach to this.
And Pavit, when you think about your experience, what was that like for you? Were you nervous when you learned about this idea? What changed for you during that trial period?
So, yes, I think as you mentioned, before jumping the grade, and me and the two other students had a 2-week trial period where we were able to kind of experience the culture, the community in 6th grade and understand whether it would be the right fit for us. And at the beginning, I think personally for me, I was extremely nervous. I didn't really like the social aspect of it, that I was not fitting in with the community or that I didn't have many friends. But I think that support system that Dr. Hogan just mentioned was a big help in terms of that. And then by the end of the 2-week trial period, and my emotions got better over the trial period. And by the end of it, I was ready. I had new friends and I was ready to make that big move. And I think that all the support that was put in place and all of the different mechanisms that I think really were designed to help the move in general were extremely helpful during that, and were a big, I think one of the big factors that was kind of tipping over the line where I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this now.
And just out of curiosity, when you were approaching this new work, right, 4th grade to 6th grade academic work, what was that experience like during the trial period?
I think that I was definitely more challenged. It was not impossible for me to do, or it was not that I couldn't learn anything, or it was a hard, like a roadblock. But I think that I was definitely more challenged and more engaged in all of my classes compared to what I had, what I would have done in 5th grade.
Now that is powerful. And Mom, I'm wondering, like, as Pavit's coming home every day during this 2-week trial period, what were some of the conversations that your family was having? How were you and your husband experiencing this trial period?
It was a very difficult choice, even as parents, because we wondered if it's going to be the right move. And we had a discussion with Dr. Hogan as well, voicing our hesitation. But having this opportunity to have a trial period for 2 weeks was actually a big difference, because Pavit could experience firsthand what it would be like if he were a 6th grader, what it would be like to sit among 6th graders. Me and my husband, we weren't really worried about him having to meet the academic level of 6th grade, but it was a lot of social emotional aspect. The school really helped us in, like, for example, even before, I think the school would decided that they would like to give us this opportunity. I think they did a lot of evaluation on their end, and then they shared it with us. Like, it was not just academic evaluations in all the subjects, but like even the social emotional aspect, like having the conversation with the counselor. The counselor was able to tell if Pavit would be ready to move into this grade. So the social emotional aspect was concerning, like, would he be happy? So as soon as, he would come home every day, we would ask him how was the day. And actually, he ended up making like on a whiteboard that we have, he ended up making like a list. And we would discuss, okay, what was good about today? What was bad? How did you feel today? And then every day he would write on the board when he would come. And we saw a difference. We saw a big difference starting day one, not being really happy because, you're leaving all your friends and you're going in a new class. But at the end of 15 days, the emotion column really changed from not being happy to being happy and being ready. Yes, that I think that trial period made a big difference, and the conversations were just like I was sharing with you, trying to assess would he be happy with the move, and yes, he was, and it was a great decision.
And Pavit, I want to come to you and ask you to take us into a classroom with you. If you're in a classroom and you have finished an assignment early or you've mastered a concept early, what happens next?
So I think that at LCCS is the type of school where each student is given their own opportunity for their own personalized learning experience. And for me, what that looks like is a sort of acceleration. If I master a concept quickly, or I'm able to finish the work that the teacher has assigned, I would always be asked by the teacher if I want to challenge myself further, or if I want to make more, if I want to create more deep thinking around that concept. And one of those prime examples is, for example, if I finish an assignment early or master a concept in my math class, sometimes my teacher would tell me would ask me if I want to try a higher level concept and challenge myself to really keep me engaged with what we're learning about in class, so that I'm never bored or dozing off. And that's really, actually, I think, going back to getting to go to school is what really makes me excited for every day at LCCS. So for example, in my math class, sometimes my teacher would provide me with another textbook where I could read and learn some concepts and really stay engaged, or give me or teach me a new topic where she would then give me some practice so I could really master and accelerate myself, where that I'm being pushed and challenged.
There was one day where I was in Pavit's math class, and they were doing this game, and you could unlock a level where you got to Pavit's challenges. But you had to get to the certain points to get to Pavit's challenges, because you couldn't just immediately unlock that level. It was really fun.
I love that. That sounds really cool. And Mom, so what does this make you think about at home? Hearing about these opportunities for extension, deeper learning, there's always something that Pavit and other students can access in order to go deeper, or maybe even to push themselves to a new concept. How does that make you as a parent feel?
It's a great opportunity, like for a child to be able to learn and keep themselves engaged at a level where they are not losing interest. So I think that LCCS recognizes that, and they are able to personalize the learning at that level. What I would like to add is that LCCS also follows the project-based learning approach, where I think kids get a deeper learning while doing a project and connecting that to what they're learning from the books, for example. I can share like an example when like Pavit was chosen, like LCCS follows a house system where they have houses for each of the circle values that the school follows. And when Pavit was chosen to be one of the house leaders, he was really deeply connected with the value system, which they learned, but now he wanted to take it at a next level, for example. So outside of school, he started writing his experiences in a book, for example, and he went on to publish his circle value books for the school, and he hopes to raise some funds, which goes back to the school. Another example as a project-based learning is when they were doing like a plant study. In the science class, they would learn about all the parts of the plants and whatnot. And at that time, the school was remote because of COVID. And then we took, you know, we were able to take that opportunity to plant some seeds at home and actually see the plant grow. So I think this kind of learning, project-based learning, also really makes LCCS very special in terms of how the students learn things in different ways, and that actually helps kids learn at a deeper level. And we have seen that works very well with Pavit, and it makes a difference, not just learning from the books, but learning by experience or doing the passion projects that Dr. Hogan was mentioning in his learning lab. I think all of that make a very rounded experience for Pavit.
Well, this has been incredible listening to the three of you. We've heard a number of things about how you approach personalization and what that impact is on students. And so you basically helped us to drive down this path of personalization is not a philosophy, right? We can make this real for students. You've talked about the learning lab, ways students can accelerate. The tools that you supply teachers with to make sure that they're thinking about where is each child, what do they need today, what do they need for this lesson, and whether that is an opportunity for intervention, an opportunity for pacing, or an opportunity to kind of deepen their learning. And it really looks like, and I can just tell from like listening to the three of you, that your intent and the fact that you feel responsibility to each child in this way is very, very clear. And the impact on students and the support from families is really empowering. And I'd love to bring Don kind of back in, because as we were pre-planning for this entire season, and we were looking at some readings, one of which from Ted Kolderie, and we hear how Kolderie argues that if we really want to maximize student motivation, and Pavit, you hit this nail on the head. If we really want to do that student motivational piece, we can't just acknowledge the differences, but we have to build systems that respond to them. And you all really exemplified that today. So Don, I'd love to bring you in as you were listening with us today, and you're very astute with our reading. What are some of the things that are coming up for you?
Yeah, thanks, Vashaunta. And I think you're exactly right that this is just a wonderful example of how personalized learning can be done at a school. And let's just kind of start thinking about the district system for a minute. And we've talked about the districts in the past, and the districts aren't bad. They're just built for something different, right? So they're built for a general education population of kids at a certain age going through a certain grade at a certain time being exposed to certain material. So it's very standardized, it's very linear, it's very age-based. In some years, kids might have a really good third or fourth grade or fifth grade. Other years, they might not, and you still move forward. So there's really not a lot of personalization in it. It's a system designed to advance kids through and expose them to the same curricula at the same time. And if they get it, that's cool. And if they don't, well, you still move on in a lot of instances too. So what Kolderie argued is we can do something different. And through chartering, we can have a greater diversity of schools, smaller schools, different approaches. So the different approaches that the schools take can match up with the different student needs and how students learn in that way. And by personalizing learning through differences in schools and allowing teachers who are closer to kids to make decisions about them as to whether they advance or skip a grade or the curricula that they're exposed to, is just going to get a better result for kids. And we're going to be able to untap human creativity and human productivity in different ways. So it was just so energizing to hear that the charter idea, that dimension of the charter idea, is being lived out in New Jersey. So that's awesome.
I completely agree. And Jim, as you think about kind of this concept we're talking about with personalization and hearing today, would love to give you the final thought before we head to close.
Well, Deming made it really clear that systems deliver what they're designed to deliver. So to hear Dr. Hogan talk about the design, the intentionality, and then to hear the scholar Pavit and his mom, what are they receiving? It's by design. And it's beautiful. And the other part is giving students real responsibility, trusting them, allowing them to take ownership and responsibility for their own learning. That's a game changer. So for all the people listening that are like working on classroom management and controlling students and a whole bunch of rules, there is a different way. And the different way takes a lot of work. It takes design, it takes effort, it takes persistence and fortitude, but it produces something that's magnificent, and it's worth the struggle. And if you can do it in New Jersey, you can do it anywhere. And so I just thank you guys for setting an example, one that we can point to, one people can visit, one they can learn about, because you also have something that is really unique. It's not that you just have created excellence, you've created enduring excellence. 30 years in 2027, that doesn't happen by accident. So to the founding team, to the team that's there today, the team that'll come tomorrow, you've built a program and a culture of winning. And that's what we want for all students.
Well, Dr. Hogan Pavit, Mom, thank you for sharing your time today, for sharing your stories today. We think it not robbery that you took this time, and we are incredibly grateful to each of you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and having us on the show.
Oh, absolutely. And family, I wish you could see their faces. Everyone here is just smiling and so full of joy. We're so excited to be here. We want to thank you all listeners for tuning in and staying right here with us side by side. Keep questioning, keep building, keep designing, keep prototyping. And of course, whatever you do, keep building those bold muscles. We'll be here same time, same station next week. Everyone have a good one.